Namaste aspirants. Welcome to Prime Time by CivicCentre IAS, the current affairs show of week 10 of subject Science and Technology and Environment and Ecology using 10 plus years of UPSC, reverse engineering, PYQ mastery and real-time current affairs tracking from PIB, The Hindu, Down to Earth, ISRO and other sources all filtered. These are the hand-picked 4 high-weightage topics plus one bonus topic which is of highest importance that dominated this week. The topics are cloud seeding, 2025 NDC Synthesis Report, Medtech mission, Ganga Basin highly water stressed, and the topic of importance reversing the brain drain. So let's quickly delve into the first topic of the week, which is cloud seeding. Delhi recently recorded an alarming air quality index of 294, prompting a desperate measure. So, the first recorded artificial rain attempt in nearly 50 years. This shows the gravity of the problem. So, to tackle this air pollution levels, there was this cloud seeding experiment done. So, what is this cloud seeding? Cloud seeding is a form of weather modification technology designed to create artificial rain. Think of it as accelerating a natural process. It involves releasing salts into clouds to help raindrops and increase chances of rainfall. Rain actually happens when the moisture in the air reaches a saturation point where it can no longer be held. This process needs very tiny particles like natural dust, pollen or salt as condensation nuclei, around which water vapor condenses and form droplets enough to fall. The cloud seeding technology aims to facilitate this process by accelerating making available these chemical nuclei. These are called seeds because it is the starting point of rain. In Delhi, the technique involved firing flares weighing of about 0.5 kg and burnt for around 2 to 2.5 minutes. It released chemical agents directly into the moisture bearing clouds. The chemicals are silver iodide and sodium chloride. This was fired for over a 17 to 18 minute period. So cloud seeding only occurs when there are enough pre-existing clouds. So it shall have the clouds in the already atmosphere. It can't create rain from a clear blue sky. So the chemical nuclei used are called seeds. So what are the most common seeds? Silver iodide and sodium chloride are majorly used. Silver iodide has been recently used in daily trial. It has a crystal structure similar to ice and it is very effective. Sodium chloride, it is common salt. We can also use dry ice. It is used to drastically cool the cloud. Next, we can also use potassium iodide. These seeds can be delivered in various ways. One is by planes directly into the clouds. So aircrafts directly inject these particular things into the clouds. That has been done in Delhi. Or you can simply spray from ground using flares or cannons as well. Globally, under ideological meteorological conditions, cloud seeding achieves success rates of 60 to 70% only. This shows it is a proven viable technology but not a guaranteed one. The concept of cloud seeding was demonstrated in 1946 by American scientists Vincent J. Sheshwar, Bernard Vonnegut, and Nobel laureate Irving Langmuir. The primary use is obviously for drought mitigation and increasing the water supply. But in the recent case of Delhi, it is seen for air quality management by washing out the pollutants. Others can also use fog dispersion at airports and hail suppression for pollutants as well. What are the challenges or the concerns? If you go to the ecological impact, the long-term effects of repeatedly introducing silver iodide into the environment and water bodies is a major concern because we can't say what happens and ethical or legal issues. So does one state have the right to steal from a neighboring state? So that creates the question of whether ownership and transboundary impact on rainfall patterns. It is expensive operation and it requires a precise timing and coordination with atmospheric conditions. Here, the Delhi experiment is just a sign of desperation but also of innovation in tackling pollution. The next topic is the 2025 NDC Synthesis Reports. So the UNFCCC's 2025 Synthesis Report has been released. It shows that for first time since the Paris Agreement, global greenhouse gas emissions are beginning to decline, which is a major milestone in our climate action. So the biggest headline is that the global greenhouse emissions, there is anticipated emissions curve bending downwards. But we have also seen last week that the 1.5 degree limit of the Paris Agreement was already breached. Hence, this decrease can be only seen as a temporary relief, and there is the urgent importance for the nations to act upon this as soon as possible. The report compiles 64 updated nationally determined contributions (NDCs), which represent around one-third of the global emissions. This report sets the tone for the COP30 in Brazil, which is already being termed the implementation COP. What are the key takeaways? The sign of emissions curve bending downwards. This is a green shot of good news. It suggests the national climate policies are finally having a collective, measurable impact on the global emissions trajectory. However, we must caution that the pace is still not fast enough to meet the 1.5 degree warning limit, which has already been breached. These NDCs collectively project emissions in 2035 to be about 17%, which is below 2019 levels if all unconditional plus conditional elements are implemented. Most of these parties expect a peak emissions before 2030 followed by a decline until 2035. This is seen as a bending of curve downward since the Paris Agreement. Deepening coverage of policy design and governance. Yes, 89% of the parties now communicate economic-wide targets, up from 81% in the previous. 97 of the parties provided information on legal or policy frameworks. Expanded thematic scope beyond such mitigation. 73% of the parties include an adaptation component, and 72% integrate indigenous peoples and local communities. Just transition, gender responsiveness, action for climate empowerment are increasingly mainstreamed. Implementation and means of implementation are still major challenges. A large number of parties list finance, technology transfer, capacity building as necessary for implementation. The costed finances reported by the parties are around 1,970 US dollars. 1,970 billion US dollars. Next, forest and nature-based solutions recognizing vital role. Many parties include afforestation, reforestation, REDD plus ecosystem risk management as part of their NDCs. Growing mention of marine resilience, coastal zone management, sequestration in blue carbon ecosystems. Emerging trends in Article 6 cooperation, transparency and tracking. 89% of parties indicated intent or possibility to use voluntary cooperation under Article 6 of Paris Agreement. Fairness, developmental context and inclusivity more overtly addressed. Parties emphasize that their NDCs are fair and ambitious in light of national circumstances, historical responsibility, socio-economic context. The global level findings have direct relevance for India's climate strategy. India's model aligns with global trends of integrated climate governance. In fact, India has been strengthening its NDCs, integrating mitigation, adaptation, and nature-based solutions along with just transition. Focus on forest, blue carbon, and nature-based solutions offering various opportunities. India has a large forest cover, increasing coastline interventions like mangroves coastal resilience, where there is a global push for forests or blue carbon is directly applicable. There is a need to accelerate implementation and ramp up means of implementation. India, though India's relatively strong policy framework must now translate into faster deployment of renewables, energy efficiency, grid integration, and low carbon transport. Monitoring, transparency, and institutional mechanisms need strengthening. India must continue strengthening its national greenhouse gas inventory systems. There shall be a digital monitoring infrastructure, data collection, and the periodic review of this NDC implementation. If you take the states of Rajasthan, Gujarat, Tamil Nadu, they have state level climate action plans. The global trend emphasis which links national plus subnational tracking. Inclusive climate action, youth, gender, indigenous, and local communities. For India, if you take, there shall be a further focus on tribal communities because they dwell in forest zones. Their rural livelihood, gender responsive climate measures, youth engagement shall be done in the climate innovation. Long term net zero pathways and interim targets. India must ensure that its short term NDC targets are aligned with a credible long term net zero strategy 2050, linking policy, investment, and infrastructure. This report sends an encouraging signal. Countries are increasingly ambitious, governance frameworks are deeper, and broad societal engagement is more evident. However, this is vital as the pace of decline is still too slow. The global community must translate ambition into rapid implementation, scaling of low emission technologies, mobilization of finance, and robust monitoring. The next topic is MedTech mission. India currently imports roughly 80% of its high end medical devices, diagnostics, and equipment. This massive import dependency has two major consequences. First, it makes healthcare expensive for the common citizen, and it makes our healthcare system vulnerable to geopolitical and supply chain shocks. In this context, let's go into the mission. It is in news because the mission for advancement in high impact areas, MedTech mission, it is a national initiative to accelerate innovation, manufacturing, and commercialization of advanced medical technologies in India. This aims to strengthen self-reliance in medical technology sector and ensure affordable and accessible healthcare for everyone. It is jointly launched by Anusandhan National Research Foundation, which is an apex body for research funding and coordination and established under the ANRF Act 2023. ICMR. This is for scientific validation and clinical expertise. Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation for technical as well as financial collaboration. This is implemented under the Ministry of Science and Technology. What is the aim of this particular mission? The aim is to reduce India's dependency on high-cost medical imports, to strengthen the domestic capacity in R&D, design and manufacturing, to ensure equitable access to affordable and high-quality medical devices and diagnostics, also to align to the medtech innovations with national health priorities such as tuberculosis, cancer, neonatal care, and primary health care. What are the key features? First is the funding support. Around 5 to 25 crores per project is linked up, and there's up to 50 crore for exceptional and high impact projects. This is open to startups, MSMEs, academic institutions, hospitals, and industry collaborations. Broad technological scope. This covers a wide spectrum of medtech innovations, which include diagnostics and devices. The diagnostics include the in vitro diagnostics. Also, the high-end frontier technologies such as radiotherapy equipment, also AI and machine language enabled platforms, which are digital health solutions and assistive technologies. The enabling frameworks. We have Patent Mitra. Patent Mitra is for IP protection and technology transfer support. Next, we have MedTech Mitra, which is a regulatory guidance and clearances. We have clinical trial networks for evidence generation and product validation, and industry mentorship for guidance for experts for scaling and commercialization. There is a two-stage selection process. One is the concept note stage. This is open from 15 September to 7 November 2025 via the website www.anrfonline.in. Here there is a screening and prioritization of innovative concepts. Next, full proposal stage. This opens in December 2025 for the shortlisted projects. The mission runs for around 5 years. What is the significance? It strengthens Atmanirbhar Bharat in high-value medical technology sector. It promotes industry academia collaboration and translational research from lab to market. It encourages affordable innovation addressing India's disease burden. It also reduces import dependency. Currently, 80% of India's high-end medical devices are imported. It complements existing policies such as PLI scheme, PRIP scheme, and National Medical Device Policy 2023. What are the challenges faced? Yes, the challenges faced are there shall be long regulatory approval timelines for new devices. We have limited clinical validation infrastructure in Tier 2 cities. There is a high need for skilled manpower in design, bioengineering, and testing. So, how to solve this particular problem? We shall establish medtech innovation clusters as well as testing hubs. Integrate public procurement policies to favor indigenous devices. Strengthen IPR and patent awareness under the Patent Mitra. Promote international collaborations and technology exchange. Encourage academic industry partnerships for continuous product development. The next topic is Ganga Basin highly water stressed. There was a joint report by China Water Risk and the Institute Geographic Sciences and Natural Resources Research. It warns that Asia's 10 major river basins, including Ganga, Brahmaputra, and Indus, are under severe water stress. It threatens nearly half of the GDP of 16 Asian countries. This report is titled No Water, No Growth 2. Raising Mother River Risks Threaten Half the Total GDP of 16 Asian countries. This emphasizes that water scarcity, climate change, and concentrated economic dependence on rivers pose a triple threat to Asia's sustainable future. The Hindu Kush Himalayan region, it is a source of 10 major rivers, including Ganga, Brahmaputra, Indus, Yellow River, Yangtze, Irrawaddy, Amu Darya, Mekong, Salween, Tarim. So these rivers support around 1.96 billion people and 10.3 trillion US dollars of GDP. It also provides 865 gigawatts of power assets across 16 different countries, which includes India, China, Pakistan, Nepal, Bangladesh, and Myanmar. In fact, these rivers account for 57% of the total internal surface water in the 16 Hindu Kush Himalayan nations. We have just said about the Asia's triple threat. What is this triple threat? First is the water scarcity. 60 to 77% of the areas in the Ganga, Indus, Tarim, and Yellow basins face high to extremely high water stress. Next, climate change. There is a glacial melt, changing monsoon patterns, and reduced snowfall that are destabilizing these river flows. Next, economic concentration. A large share of GDP, power, and population is clustered around these river basins, making them highly vulnerable. What are the key findings? The rising water stress across Asia. When water use exceeds 40% of the available resources, this is called as water stress threshold. Over 60 to 77% of these basins exceeds this threshold. Rapid urbanization and population migration to riverine cities intensify such pressure. Population and GDP dynamics. If you take the river Ganga, the population is around The population growth since 2018 is around 97 million in this particular area, and the GDP growth is around 667 billion US dollars. So there's the largest population increase key and a contributor to India's GDP. Similarly, if you take Brahmaputra, it is around 22 million population growth and the GDP is around 153 billion US dollars. So there's a moderate GDP growth with high flood risk. Similarly, Indus has around 63 million and 10 billion US dollars growth. So there's a slow recovery, especially post the 2022 floods of Indus River. So coming to the economic impact, the 10.3 trillion worth of GDP in Asia is at a direct risk from worsening water scarcity. The river basin is dependent on industries such as energy, textiles, agriculture and mining. They face supply chain and growth dispersions. If you take Ganga Basin, this is the epicenter of India's water stress. Ganga Basin houses around 45% of India's population and contributes 44% of India's GDP. This supports 25% of India's coal-based power generation. It is extremely water stressed and the usage exceeds 70% of the renewable supply, where only the 40% is considered as threshold, but here it is exceeding 70%. The rapid urbanization, pollution and industrial expansion threaten both water quality and availability. Though we have different programs like Namami Ganga, National Mission for Clean Ganga, the groundwater depletion and there's untreated sewage remain the challenges. What are the policy recommendations, especially for India? Develop waternomic roadmaps for major basins. What is this waternomic? Waternomic is integrating basin level water budgeting with industry and agricultural planning. Next, strengthen basin governance frameworks to empower Ganga River Basin Authority and such type of institutions for all the major rivers. Enhance water efficiency and reuse. There shall be zero liquid discharge from industries and promote wastewater recycling. The climate resilient infrastructure. We shall prioritize glacial monitoring, flood control and climate smart agriculture. Public-private investment in water security. We need to incentivize high hydro efficiency technologies, micro irrigation and aquifer recharge projects. And we need to build water resilient economies through data-driven basin management. Make water security a national growth strategy, not an environmental afterthought. Once the water security when is considered as the national growth strategy, there shall be high improvement in the efficiency of water usage.
Hello everyone. As you all know, Civil Services Prime Time is one of its kind initiative where we are teaching the students current affairs related to that particular subject one day at a time. అంటే ఒక వారంలో జరిగిన కరెంట్ అఫైర్స్ అన్ని ఒక సబ్జెక్ట్ కి సంబంధించి మేము ఒక రోజులో చెప్తున్నాం. సో దిస్ ఈజ్ ఆల్ బికాస్ ఆఫ్ ద రివర్స్ ఇంజనీరింగ్ టెక్నిక్. బికాస్ మీరు ప్రతి వీడియో చూసినట్టయితే ఎండ్ లో ప్రీవియస్ ఇయర్ క్వశ్చన్స్ ప్రిలిమ్స్ చేస్తున్నాము, అలాగే ఒక క్వశ్చన్ మెయిన్స్ చేస్తాం. సో in order to get daily updates at 7 o'clock sharp as we are doing it, subscribe చేసుకోండి, అలాగే bell కూడా click చేయండి so that 7 o'clock కి మీకు immediate గా notification వస్తుంది.
The most important topics for this week is reversing the brain drain. Why is the reversing of brain drain in news? In fact, India is planning a new national research scheme that attracts Indian origin scientists and the STEM faculty working abroad to return and work in Indian institutions. The initiative seeks to reverse the long-standing brain drain and transform it into brain gain, leveraging restrictive foreign research policies and the global mobility of scientific talent. In fact, there have been past efforts had limited success due to bureaucratic hurdles and weak institutional support. The new plan envisions long-term roles, competitive pay, and research infrastructure grants in leading institutions like IITs and ISCs. What are the earlier initiatives? India has a long recognized the value of its diaspora scientists. Hence, it has started the Ramanujan Fellowship. This offered a 5-year research grants for early career scientists returning from abroad. Inspire innovation in science pursuit for inspired research and Ramalingaswamy Re-Entry Fellowship. Both of them together encouraged return of biotechnologists and researchers. Vajra, visiting advanced joint research faculty. This focused on short-term collaborations with NRIs. These initiatives had limited impact with very short duration. Most of the cases it is around 1 to 3 years. There is inadequate research infrastructure. There is a lack of integration with existing system as well as the delays in funding. What are the objectives and vision for this new scheme? First is reverse the brain drain. It encourages the top level Indian origin researchers to relocate and strengthen India's scientific manpower. It enhances global collaboration. It builds stronger research linkages between Indian and global innovations. Stimulate innovation. It boosts India's share in global research output, patents, especially patents, and technological breakthroughs. Foster institutional excellence. It strengthens premier institutes and gradually uplift state and central universities. It leverages geopolitical opportunity. It utilizes the restrictive foreign research ecosystems, especially the post-Trump US policies. They can be used as a pull factor. What are the opportunities? First, strengthening domestic R&D. The returning scientists bring advanced expertise in AI, biotechnology, quantum computing, and other technologies. This can help develop world-class labs, attract international funding, and mentor the next generation. This reduces the brain drain and also boosts innovation ecosystem, global networking, integration, and reputation. These returning diaspora researchers can act as global connectors, hence linking the Indian institutions with labs in US, UK, Europe, and Japan. They can also build a culture of scientific excellence. They can promote peer-reviewed publishing, interdisciplinary projects, the economic and strategic benefits. This strengthens India's science diplomacy and contributes to national security technologies such as space, defense, health, cyber energy. This helps India meet its targets to become a global innovation hub by 2047 under its Vikasit Bharat. What are the challenges and structural pitfalls under this particular program? Bureaucratic and administrative hurdles. The procurement tendering process are outdated and very time consuming. Hence, there is a fund disbursement delays which stall the ongoing projects. Scientists face layers of approval even for simple purchases of lab reagents or software. This discourages the high performing scientists who used to work at flexible research and environments abroad. There are institutional rigidities. Hiring and promotion process are hierarchical and non-transparent. There is a rigid bureaucratic culture that restricts creative freedom and interdisciplinary projects. Lack of autonomy in resource allocation or personal hiring. Cultural and professional adjustment. Returnees often struggle to adapt different work ethics, institutional politics, and informal hierarchies. Salary differentials and limited postdoc or lab support can reduce this morale. Quality of life issues and urban challenges. Pollution, poor housing facilities, traffic congestion, limited international schooling options. These deter the reallocation. In fact, the major research institutions are located in Delhi, Mumbai, and Kolkata, which face severe air quality problems. The resentment among the existing faculty. Preferential packages can cause resentment and fragmentation within the departments. There is a need for inclusive institutional culture to integrate returnees and resident faculty harmoniously. What can we learn from China? The brain drain, how they challenged China. In fact, the China's 1000 Talents Plan, it successfully attracted overseas researchers with high funding, housing and simplified visas. Where does India lag? The R&D spending. China spends around 2.7% of GDP, whereas India only spends around 0.65% of GDP. The quality. China has 40 plus top ranked universities, whereas India has very few universities. Even in China, local scientists have expressed resentment over returnee privileges, which is a cautionary lesson for India, which shall be considered the way forward for India. We need to increase the R&D expenditure. So we need to raise from 0.65% to at least 1.5 to 2% of GDP, where in China it is around 2.7%, and in South Korea it is around 4.5%. This expands the funding for basic science and research. Ease of doing research. Create a single window clearance system for fund utilization, procurement and hiring. Digitize this grant management and reporting to reduce manual paperwork. Empowered and autonomous institutions. Grant universities and research centers greater financial and administrative autonomy. Here we can introduce tenure track systems to attract the global talent. Inclusive institutional ecosystem. Avoid the two-class researcher systems. Returnees and locals shall collaborate but not compete with each other. Hence, we need to incentivize the joint projects and shared infrastructure to prevent such frictions. Improve quality of life. Establish research cities or clusters like Bengaluru, Hyderabad and Pune with clean, green infrastructure, quality schools and housing. Provide relocation and family support for these returnee scientists. Broaden the institutional base. Extend benefits beyond IITs and ISCs to central and state universities, enabling them more equitable scientific development across India. In fact, India's Return Scientist program aligns with the global competition for scientific talent. China, South Korea, and Singapore have already reaped these benefits by integrating diaspora researchers into their national missions. If India can successfully initiate this, India can be turned into South Asian hub of innovation, contributing to the global scientific advancement as well as the South-South cooperation. The initiative is to attract Indian origin researchers as ambitious and visionary, reflecting India's aspiration to become a global scientific powerhouse. We can also reverse decades of brain drain and build a robust knowledge economy, but if it is backed by systematic reforms. India not only invite the scientists but also build an ecosystem where they can thrive, that is free from bureaucratic hurdles, equipped with world-class facilities. So it is not about bringing talent back, it's bringing them back to a place where there's a worth returning to. These are the 5 important topics of this particular week. Let's quickly go through the PYQs. Coming to the first PYQ. Which of the following are the key features of National Ganga River Basin Authority? So what is this Ganga River Basin Authority? This was constituted in 2009 under the Environment Protection Act. It was created to ensure effective abatement of pollution and conservation of the Ganga River by adopting a basin-based approach. Coming to the first statement. River basin is the unit of planning and management. Yes, National Ganga River Basin Authority adopted river basin as a unit of planning and management. That means Ganga and its tributaries are treated as a single interconnected ecological system. These tributaries are not a different thing. Ganga as well as one of its tributary Yamuna both are considered as a single ecosystem, but it is not fragmented by states as well. Next statement. It spearheads the river conservation at national level. Yes, the National Ganga River Basin Authority was meant to coordinate, plan and monitor efforts related to Ganga conservation across ministries, states and departments. One of the chief ministers of the states through which the Ganga flows becomes the chairman of the National Ganga River Basin Authority on a rotation basis. The chairman here is the Prime Minister, but not the Chief Minister. Hence, this statement is wrong. In fact, these chief ministers of Ganga Basin are the members, but they never chair the authority on a rotational basis. It is chaired by the Prime Minister. Let's go into the second question. The term intended nationally determined contributions is sometimes seen in news in the context of this term intended nationally determined contributions originated under United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. This was introduced during the process leading up to the Paris Agreement. Before the Paris Climate Summit, COP21, each country was asked to submit its own climate action plan. These were called as intended nationally determined contributions. They outline what each country intends to do, like reducing greenhouse gas emissions, enhance adaptation measures to tackle climate change. Once the Paris Agreement came into force, the intended part was dropped and they became nationally determined contributions. These intended nationally determined contributions are voluntary pledges and not legally binding targets. They represent each country's commitment to limit global warming to well below 2 degrees centigrade above pre-industrial levels. So, the correct answer is the plan of action outlined by countries of the world to combat climate change. Next, with reference to Forest Carbon Partnership Facility, which of the following statements are correct? In fact, this Forest Carbon Partnership Facility was launched in 2008 by World Bank. Its main goal is to help developing countries reduce emissions from deforestation and forest degradation and to enhance forest carbon stocks. Let's look into the statements. It is a global partnership of governments, businesses, civil society and indigenous people. Yes, this is indeed a global partnership that brings together the donor and forest countries, private sector, civil societies, indigenous peoples organizations. It acts as a platform for capacity building and knowledge sharing on REDD+. It provides financial aid to universities, individual scientists and institutions involved in scientific forest research to develop eco-friendly and climate adaptation technologies for sustainable forest management. This statement is a wrong statement because this Forest Carbon Partnership Facility does not directly fund universities or scientists for research. Its funding is aimed at governments of developing countries for REDD plus readiness and implementation. Research is only a minor component but not the main function. Third statement, it assists countries in their REDD plus reducing emissions from deforestation and forest degradation plus efforts by providing them financial and technical assistance. This is one of the core objective of the Forest Carbon Partnership Facility. It helps countries to prepare to REDD plus strategies and reference emission levels. It establishes monitoring systems and safeguards. Implement results-based payments for verified emission reductions. Consider the following statements. Statement 1. Article 6 of the Paris Agreement on Climate Change is frequently discussed in global discussions on sustainable development and climate change. Statement 2. Article 6 of Paris Agreement on Climate Change sets out the principles of carbon markets. Statement 3. Article 6 of the Paris Agreement on Climate Change intends to promote inter-country non-market strategies to research their climate targets. So the Paris Agreement 2015 is a landmark global treaty under UNFCCC. It aims to limit global temperature rise to well below 2 degrees and pursue efforts to limit it to 1.5 degrees compared to the pre-industrial levels. Among these articles, Article 6 is one of the most complex and debated section. It defines on how countries can contribute to achieve their NDCs through market and non-market mechanisms. Let's look into each of these following statements. Article 6 of the Paris Agreement on Climate Change is frequently discussed in global discussions on sustainable development and climate change. Yes, this statement is correct as it is highly discussed in COP meetings, especially the COP 26, 27 and 28, because it defines international carbon markets and sets rules for carbon trading, offsets and international marketing cooperation. This also introduces non-market approaches that link climate action with sustainable development. Second statement. Article 6 of the Paris Agreement on Climate Change sets out principles of carbon markets. Yes, Article 6 Clause 2. It allows bilateral or multilateral trading of emission reductions between countries called internationally transferred mitigation outcomes. Article 6 Clause 4. It establishes a UN supervised carbon market mechanism like Clean Development Mechanism under the Kyoto Protocol but improved version. Hence, Article 6 indeed lays the foundation for global carbon markets, making this a correct statement. Statement 3. Article 6 of Paris Agreement on Climate Change intends to promote inter-country non-market strategies to reach their climate targets. Even this particular statement is correct as Article 6 Clause 8 on non-market approaches such as technology transfer, capacity building, policy coordination, adoption support. These non-market approaches encourages international cooperation with carbon trading. We can also see that Statement 1, it defines both market mechanisms in Statement 2 and non-market mechanisms, that is cooperation without trading, in Statement 3. Thus, both Statement 1, 2 and 3 are correct and both of them explain why it is majorly discussed in the global discussions. The next question. The process of artificially inducing rainfall, the artificial way of causing rainfall to reduce air pollution makes use of. In fact, this process of artificially inducing rainfall is called cloud seeding. This involves dispersing certain chemicals into atmosphere to encourage cloud condensation and precipitation. It enhances rainfall to reduce air pollutant and drought impact. There are aerosol particles that act as cloud condensation nuclei, around which moisture condenses to form raindrops. What are the most common chemicals used? Silver iodide. It is most commonly used. They are structurally similar to ice and helps initiate ice crystal formation in clouds. We also use potassium iodide. This is used in cases as nucleating agent. Sodium chloride are used for warm clothes, especially in the coastal or tropical regions to increase the droplet consolidance. Hence, we use silver iodide and potassium iodide. In fact, states using cloud seeding are Karnataka, Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, Telangana and Andhra Pradesh have already used this cloud seeding technology. Varshadari, that is a project in Karnataka. We have also Project Varsha in Maharashtra. The purpose is to enhance rainfall and reduce air pollution. Now let's go into one of the main question. This is a stimulated question where brain drain to brain circulation. critically examine how India's recent initiatives to attract Indian origin scientists can contribute to national innovation capacity, suggest measures to make these efforts sustainable and equitable. So, how to start this particular answer? In introduction, you define what is brain drain, and brain circulation. Already discussed, brain drain is the large scale immigration of large skilled professionals from developing countries to developed nations. Brain gain is the reverse flow, where skilled individuals return or contribute to their home countries. Next, brain circulation. This represents a dynamic exchange with scientists and professionals moving across borders, sharing knowledge, and collaborating. In fact, here also you can mention the recent government of India's initiatives, that is STEM, researchers in STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. To return to India, then define the, like, in the next part you can write the India's recent initiatives. The recent is the proposed returnee scientist scheme, and then you can also mention about Anusandhan National Research Foundation, which envisions international collaboration and diaspora participation in national research missions. We can also discuss here the Maha MedTech mission for indigenous innovation in medical technology, reducing dependence and imports. The Vajra Jia Global Initiative of Academic Networks. We can also discuss the key innovation ecosystem enablers, the programs like Startup India, Atal Innovation Mission, and R&D tax incentives. What are the contributions to national innovation capacity? Here we can discuss about enhanced knowledge transfer, that is when the scientists come back to India due to the global exposure, they integrate India into international scientific collaborations, the strengthening of R&D base. They have already expertise in the frontier areas such as AI, biotechnology, semiconductors, clean energy, quantum technologies. Next, bridging research and industry gap. So they can link the industrial linkages abroad. Their involvement can enhance commercialization and Indian innovations. They can also act as institutional mentorship, mentoring the young researchers. This also boosts Atmanirbhar Bharat by localizing innovation and technology development. Then you discuss the critical challenges. What are the critical challenges? The first is the bureaucratic bottlenecks, institutional cultural gaps, that is the lack of interdisciplinary collaboration and academic freedom. You can also discuss about the resource and infrastructure constraints, equity and institutional harmony, the quality of life and ecosystem issues such as urban congestion, air pollution, inadequate schooling for children. In conclusion, you can suggest how it can be made sustainable and equitable, like enhancing the R&D investment close for around 2% to the GDP, ease of doing research, institutional reforms, inclusive integration, diaspora research networks like ANRF, the Global Indian Science Network. This is under ANRF, improving the quality of life, and the lessons that are learned from the global markets, such as Thousand Talents Plan. This Thousand Talents Plan is from China. Next, we have also the Brain Return Program of South Korea. These lessons from these global models can avoid certain pitfalls. So answer writing is one of the major key. So try to write your answers and send your answers to response@civiccentre.in, where the CivicCentre IAS masters give a valuable feedback. Thank you for listening to the episode and subscribe to the channel for regular updates.
CivicCentre IAS is offering Telangana Group 1 Prelims cum Mains classes as well as Andhra Pradesh Group 1 Prelims cum Mains classes in English medium for a period of 8 to 10 months. This also covers the complete NCERT textbooks and statewide textbooks. So, what are you waiting for? Learn through reverse engineering technique today. Admissions are in progress. Join now. Visit our website. Thank you.